Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really setting aside the shiny HGTV images and the basic math. We're diving deep into the real world of real estate investing.
Yeah, the complex stuff.
Exactly. It's not just about running the numbers on cap rates, right? It's digging into the deeper currents, the psychology of negotiation, the historical forces, the tax angles that most people miss, the things that actually build wealth over generations.
Absolutely. That's the mission today. We've pulled together a pretty wide range of sources. I mean, everything from tactile negotiation guides, super detailed tax law stuff, all the way over to urban geography textbooks and even analyses of mid-century government policy on housing.
Wow.
And the idea is to sort of weave all that together into a real blueprint. For you, the listener, we want this to be the shortcut, the way to get truly well-informed, fast, not just knowing how to close a deal, but really understand why the market moves the way it does.
Okay, so if your goal is to get that deep knowledge, maybe move past the beginner stuff and into advanced execution. This is for you. Let's unpack it. Where do we start? Maybe the foundation? How wealth actually gets built.
Yeah, let's start there, the long game.
Okay, so right off the bat, one source makes a pretty bold claim. It says, houses, specifically single-family homes, are actually the best investment for building wealth. Better returns, less work than apartments or shopping centers. Now that feels counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It does. Usually you hear scaling means commercial multifamily.
Yeah.
For liability, density.
Right. So what's the counter-argument here? Why single-family?
Well, the source really pushes back on what work means. They argue commercial isn't actually easier. Think about apartments. Constant tenant turnover, right? Common area headaches, plus the legal side with lots of tenants. That's immense.
Okay.
And commercial, like a shopping center, you're dealing with complex leases, anchor tenants, percentage rents, big maintenance stuff like parking lots, massive HVAC systems. It's not simple.
So the argument for the single-family house is the tenant.
Pretty much. If you buy right, choose a good location, you often get a better quality, longer-term tenant, maybe a family who treats it like their home, not just a temporary stop.
Ah, right. Less turnover.
Exactly. If you lock in a good, low-maintenance tenant for years, the day-to-day management can be way less than a 50-unit building. And over decades, the appreciation, the debt paydown, that often beats the perceived scale of commercial.
That focus on the long game, it leads right into the specific strategy they detail for beginners. The 1-8-10-10 rule. Sounds like a formula.
It is, and it's designed to force profitability right from the start. It's all about buying equity up front. The first 10, you got to target buying at least 10% below market value.
Okay, why is that so critical?
Immediate safety margin. Their example. A house listed or valued at $150K. You need to aim to get it for $135K. Negotiate that discount up front.
Got it. Second 10.
Put no more than 10% down. So on that $135K purchase, that's $13,500 down. Keep your capital moving right. Don't tie it all up.
Makes sense. And the final 10, that's the long-term part.
Yeah, that's the hold. Hold until the property's value doubles. So in their example, until that $150K initial value hits $300. Let's run those numbers quickly.
Okay, so bought for $135K, $13.05 is down. Loan is $121 of $5K. Fast forward maybe 10, 15 years, it's worth $300K. What's the equity look like?
Well, after, say, 10 years of payments on a 30-year loan, your balance might be down to around maybe $104,000, give or take.
So asset worth $300K, loan is $104K. Wow, that's $196,000 in equity.
Exactly. From a $13,500 investment, almost $200 in equity, plus you collected rent the whole time.
That's powerful.
It really is. And that focus on locations that could be great for 20, 30 years, like that Scott guy doing the house hack. It's about forced appreciation through smart buying, plus market lift over time. Patience really pays.
Okay, I see the power of the long hold, the equity buildup. But the downside you mentioned, capital lockup, that $13,500 down, it's stuck in the house, right? Until I sell or refi way down the line.
That's the classic dilemma, slows you down.
Yeah, makes buying house number 2, 3, 4 much harder.
And that's exactly why the BRRR method is so popular now. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It's all about capital efficiency. Getting your money back out to use again.
So compare the traditional investor, let's call him Tom.
Right. Tom saves up, buys one house a year maybe. Linear growth.
Versus the BRRR investor.
Mike. Mike finds a way to use the same capital potentially multiple times in 1 year. That's the key.
Okay, walk me through the mechanics, especially that refinance step. That's the magic, isn't it?
It really is. So Mike often uses cash or maybe hard money, private money, to buy a distressed property quickly. That's the buy. Then funds the repairs, the rehab.
Needs work, obviously.
Right. Once it's fixed up and rented out the rent, He goes to a conventional bank. He applies for a cash-out refinance based on the new, higher value, the after-repair value, or ARV.
The appraisal is key here then.
Absolutely critical. If the appraisal comes in strong, say $200, and the bank lends 75% of that value...
So $150 here loan.
Right. Hopefully that $150K is enough to pay back the initial purchase costs, the rehab money, and return most, if not all, of Mike's original cash back into his pocket.
And that cash is immediately ready for the repeat. Buys the next distressed property.
Exactly. So the growth difference is huge. Tom, saving $50Ks a year, buys one house a year. Mike starts with $50K, but if he can BRRR a house every 4 months.
He buys 3 houses in year 1 with the same starting cash.
Yep. By year 3, Mike's got 9 houses, Tom's got 3. It's exponential versus linear. Mike's building capital velocity.
But it sounds riskier. Where's the biggest vulnerability in BRRR?
The appraisal, hands down. If that appraiser comes in low, if the ARV isn't high enough to get you the loan needed to pull all your cash back out.
Your money's stuck again. Trapped equity.
Exactly. Your capital is locked up until the market maybe appreciates enough later, or you put in more cash. That's why the buy is so important, buying it right, knowing your rehab costs accurately, and being conservative on your ARV estimate. Speed and leverage require precision. ###C. Leveraging short-term rentals, STRs.
Okay, moving from that multi-year compounding idea to something faster. Short-term cash flow. We're talking short-term rentals, right?
Yeah.
Airbnb, VRBO.
Yeah.
That whole world.
Yeah, this area has just exploded. It's a totally different game.
It's especially interesting in markets where, regular long-term rent just doesn't cover the mortgage these days.
For sure, STRs can offer, like, turbocharged cash flow potential, but you have to switch gears. You're not a passive landlord anymore. You're an active operator.
Like running a mini hotel.
Basically, yeah. Way more attention to detail, constant turnover, more cleaning, more guest communication. But the payoff can be much higher cash-on-cash returns.
The sources actually give a pretty detailed checklist for operators.
Yeah.
It's not just list it and forget it. You have to really analyze the competition.
Oh, absolutely. Ruthlessly.
Yeah.
You need to look at 5 key things for every competitor in your buy. First, their price per night. Are they using dynamic pricing or just flat rates?
Okay.
Second, calendar occupancy. When are their places empty? Third, housekeeping fees. Are yours competitive? Too high? Too low? Fourth, minimum and maximum night stays. Are they missing out on, like, quick 2-night weekend trips? And fifth, their house rules. Are they reasonable? Too strict?
And the point of scrutinizing all that is?
Find their weaknesses, exploit them. If their photos are dark, blurry phone pics, get professional photos, their listing description full of typos. Write a killer one, highlight local stuff.
If you're not using dynamic pricing for local events.
You use it, get software. The idea is to beat them on these little details. That drives bookings to your listing, bumps up your occupancy.
That makes sense. Let's talk risk. Specifically cancellation policies in really popular areas. The advice seems pretty blunt.
It is. In those high-demand spots, think big vacation towns, places with lots of conventions. The advice is clear. Use the strictest cancellation policy the platform allows.
It's a bit harsh, Manny.
It sounds unfriendly, but it's pure business risk management. Think about it. Someone books your prime summer week 6 months early. Then they cancel 2 weeks before. You've probably lost the chance to book that super high-value week.
Okay. The opportunity cost is huge.
Massive. A strict policy stops people from casually tying up your best dates. It protects your revenue. You're selling a limited, high-demand time in your property. You've got to protect its value.
Okay, we've got the financial structures down.
Yeah.
Now, actually getting the deals done.
Yeah.
Negotiation. This gets into some really interesting psychology. Stuff that feels backward almost, like this anti-niceness ruse, triggering a no.
Yeah, this completely flips conventional sales advice, right? Most people aim for yes right away.
Get them saying yes.
But yes can make people feel cornered, defensive. They put their guard up. A skilled negotiator knows that getting a no actually makes the other person feel safer, in control.
How does that work?
Saying no lets them establish a boundary. It signals, okay, I'm still talking, but I have limits. It gives them a sense of security.
So instead of, do you have a few minutes?
Yeah.
We ask.
Is now a bad time to talk?
So when they say no, it's fine. They've asserted control.
Exactly. They feel empowered. Their defenses drop a bit. Now you can actually have a conversation without that sort of forced politeness. You've shown respect for their time and boundaries. It's a psychological foot in the door.
Okay, now this next one is fascinating. Anchoring and concession. The rejection, then retreat technique.
This taps deep into that reciprocity thing humans have. You start with a big request, something you fully expect them to reject. That sets a high anchor point.
Like asking for the moon.
Well, maybe not the moon, but something ambitious. Then, right after they say no, you retreat to your real, smaller request. The key is they perceive your retreat as a concession you made to them.
And because you made a concession.
They feel the subconscious urge to reciprocate, to make a concession back to you. The example uses selling stuff door to door.
Right. The circus tickets versus chocolate bars.
Yeah. Ask for $5 for circus tickets, get rejected, then immediately ask, okay, well, how about these $1 chocolate bars? People are much more likely to buy the chocolate bar because they feel like they won't by getting you to back down from the bigger ask.
How did that translate to real estate?
Could be asking for, say, 10 specific repairs or included items you don't really need. They reject 8. You then concede and say, okay, but I really need these 2 things. The seller might readily agree to those 2, feeling like they got a good deal by avoiding the other 8.
But hang on, couldn't starting with a huge ask just backfire?
Yeah.
Make you look aggressive or like you're playing games?
Yeah.
Especially if the seller's already stressed.
That's a really important point. The sources definitely stress this needs finesse and respect. The big ask has to be justifiable, even if it's a stretch, not completely ridiculous. If they feel you're just messing with them, yeah, it'll shut things down fast.
So the retreat needs to be smooth.
Smooth, respectful, shift quickly to the smaller, more reasonable thing, let everyone save face.
Speaking of saving face, after you've anchored high on price, the advice is to pivot to bending reality with non-monetary terms. What's that about?
It's about getting out of a head-to-head price war. Say you anchored at $400, buyers stuck at $308K, you're deadlocked on price.
Right, just bargaining numbers.
So you pivot. You say, look, I can't do $380Ks, but what if I give you an extra 60 days to close so you have plenty of time to sort out your move? And I'll leave the nice washer and dryer.
So you're giving them things they value: time, convenience, stuff that maybe don't cost you as much as dropping the price $20K.
Exactly. They get concessions that feel valuable to them. It breaks the price deadlock. Both sides can feel like they won something, which keeps the deal alive.
Okay, final negotiation trap. Self-bidding. There's a painful auction story.
Oh, yeah, it's a classic cautionary tale. This guy's at an auction, really wants this property. The bidding stalls at $65,000. Nobody else is bidding against him.
Okay.
In the heat of the moment, adrenaline pumping, he yells out, $70,000. He literally bid against himself, raised his own offer by $5,000.
Ouch. Why?
Emotion took over. Fear of losing it, excitement. He wasn't thinking logically. The lesson is crystal clear. Know your absolute maximum walkaway number beforehand. Stick to it. Never bid against yourself. Let the other party force your hand. Don't do it for them. #B, finding and securing properties.
Okay, moving on to actually finding these deals. Where should investors focus? The advice seems to be, look for trouble. Buy houses someone else does not want.
That's where the value is often created, not just found, right? You're actively seeking out the problems. Maybe it's the burnt-out landlord who's just sick of tenants and toilets. They're tired, they want out.
And those sellers are more motivated.
Often, yeah. More likely to accept a below-market price. Or, maybe even more valuable, they might accept a really low down payment, or even offer seller financing themselves. That lets you keep more of your own capital free.
Makes sense. Now, in that distressed space, you often run into wholesalers. We need to be careful here, define their role, and mention the cautions, especially with laws changing.
Right. So a wholesaler's job is basically to find a good deal, get the property under contract, and then sell the contract itself, the right to buy the property, to an end investor, like you, for a fee.
They don't actually buy the house.
Usually not. They just flip the paper. Now, the cautions. First, they generally offer less value than a licensed agent. No fiduciary duty. Usually fewer connections to good contractors, lenders, managers, etc.
And the legal side, that's getting tricky.
Very. Wholesaling laws are different everywhere, and states are cracking down. In many places, if the wholesaler is negotiating price and terms and they don't have a real estate license, they might be breaking the law. It could void the whole deal. You absolutely have to know your state's rules before working with one.
Okay, crucial advice. Next piece of wisdom, knowing when to walk away. When does helping someone cross the line into making a bad investment?
This is tough but important. If a seller is truly desperate, zero equity, facing foreclosure tomorrow, needs cash just to rent a truck, they need help, maybe charity, not an investment deal structured around their desperation.
So the advice isn't to lowball them ruthlessly.
No, the advice is don't compromise your investment numbers just to rescue them by overpaying. If the deal doesn't work financially for you, walk away from the deal itself. But the sources suggest if you genuinely want to help, maybe write them a separate small check for moving expenses, say $500 or $1,000. Keep the investment decision clean and rational.
That's pragmatic. Okay, last point on securing deals. Loan commitments.
Yeah.
Get it in writing. Always.
Always non-negotiable. The sources have horror stories.
Yeah.
Big reputable banks, insurance companies giving verbal yeses on loans. And then policy changes internally, or some senior person reviews it and says no after the investor has already spent money on appraisals, title searches, maybe passed on other deals based on that verbal okay.
Oof, that could kill the deal and cost thousands.
Tens of thousands, easily. An oral commitment is basically worthless in the end. You need that signed, written loan commitment before you treat the financing as secured, period.
Okay, let's shift gears hard now. Financial analysis. Comparing deals. We need standard tools. The big one is cap rate. Remind us what it is and why it's the go-to metric.
Right, capitalization rate or cap rate. It's simple. Net operating income, your NOI, divided by the property's price.
NOI price.
Yep. And the reason it's superior for comparing properties is because it strips out the debt service. It ignores the mortgage payment.
Why is ignoring the mortgage so important for comparison?
Because how someone finances a deal varies wildly, right? You might pay all cash. I might put 20% down with a great rate. Someone else might use expensive hard money.
So the loan payments are totally different for the same property.
Exactly. If you include debt in your comparison, you're not really comparing the properties themselves. You're comparing the financing deals people got. Cap rate looks at the property's raw operating profit before debt. It levels the playing field. Apples to apples. Property A versus property B, purely on operations.
Okay, that makes sense. But this difference in valuation, it leads to tactical games between buyers and sellers, especially around that NOI number.
Oh yeah. Buyers, naturally, want to use the current year's actual NOI, or maybe even the trailing 12 months. If the property made $50K NOI last year, the buyer uses that $50 to calculate the cap rate, which usually justifies a lower offer price.
And sellers.
Sellers love to use the pro forma, the future projected NOI. They'll say, yeah, I made $50 last year, but next year, with planned rent bumps and maybe lower vacancy, it will make $60. They capitalize that higher future number to justify a higher asking price today.
So the negotiation becomes about whose crystal ball is more believable.
Pretty much. Whose assumptions about future income and expenses seem more realistic.
All right, thinking about the end game,
Yes.
selling. The sources really emphasize the high cost of selling as a reason to favor buy and hold, or BRRRR. Just how much does selling eat into profits?
It's often shocking when you lay it out. Let's say you sell that $300K house. You're probably looking at a 6% realtor commission right off the top.
That's $18,000.
Right. Plus closing costs, title insurance, attorney fees, transfer taxes, etc. That could easily be another $2,000, $3,000, even $4,000 depending on where you are. So call it $20K, $22K total.
So if your gross profit before those costs was, say, $30,000.
That $20K plus in selling costs just ate up like 66–70% of your profit before you even think about capital gains tax. It makes quick flips look much less attractive.
And reinforces the BRRR idea: refinance to get cash out. Avoid those huge transaction costs by holding.
Exactly. Defer those costs.
Okay, one more finance detail, especially important to partnerships. The difference between cumulative and non-cumulative preferred returns. Sounds technical, but crucial in agreements.
Super crucial. This defines who gets paid first from cash flow and what happens if there's not enough cash to go around in a given year. A non-cumulative pref means if the property doesn't make enough profit to pay your agreed-upon preferred return this year, too bad. That shortfall is just gone. You don't get it.
Ouch. So if the pref is $10 and it only makes $6K, you lose that $4 for the year.
Yeah.
It doesn't carry over. Now, a cumulative pref, that's different.
How so?
With cumulative, that $4K shortfall carries over to the next year. So in year 2, before anyone else gets paid profits, the preferred investor is owed their year 2 $10 pref plus the $4K shortfall from year 1.
So they have to be made whole eventually.
Right. As a passive investor putting money in, you almost always want cumulative. It protects your priority. As the operator, non-cumulative puts less pressure on future cash flow if you have a bad year. Big negotiating point in partnerships. Hashtag B, tax optimization and advanced planning.
All right, let's talk taxes, the holy grail for real estate investors. And the most powerful strategy, according to these sources, sounds almost too simple. Just never sell.
It sounds simple, but it's profound. Real estate gets favorable tax treatment, right? Depreciation, interest deductions. The government wants you to own it. You pay tax mainly on the cash flow year to year, and then potentially a huge tax bill when you sell capital gains.
So by not selling, you avoid triggering that big capital gains tax event. Or you use a 1031 exchange, swap one investment property for another like-kind one, which defers the tax. The money that would have gone to taxes stays working for you, compounding inside the next property. That's how fortunes are built over time.
But the flipper, the person buying and selling quickly, they can fall into a nasty trap. The flipper's inventory tax trap. Explain that one.
This is a painful mistake. A flipper makes, say, $300,000 profit flipping houses in year one. They immediately reinvest that entire $300K into buying more houses to flip in year two. They often think, okay, I reinvested it, so I don't owe tax on that profit yet, right? Like a 1031.
Wrong.
Dead wrong. A 1031 exchange is only for property held for investment or productive use in a business. Houses bought with the primary intent to resell quickly are considered inventory, like shoes in a shoe store.
Ah, so it's treated differently.
Totally differently. That $300K profit is ordinary income, taxable in year one, period.
Right.
It doesn't matter that the cash was immediately put back into new inventory. The flipper owes tax on that $300K now. If they didn't set cash aside for taxes, big, big trouble.
Wow. Okay, shifting to long-term wealth again, using retirement accounts. Specifically, self-directed Roth IRAs for real estate. This sounds powerful.
It's a massive advantage if you qualify and set it up right. Imagine you have $100 in a Roth IRA. You use a self-directed custodian to invest that $100K into a rental property, maybe a BRRR deal.
Okay.
Over, say, 15 years, through rent appreciation, maybe a refile. That initial $100K inside the Roth goes to $330K. Because Roth contributions were already taxed, all that rental income over the years, tax-free growth. And when you eventually sell the property inside the Roth,
The whole $330K comes out tax-free.
completely tax-free withdrawals in retirement. That tax-free compounding and withdrawal is just incredibly powerful compared to tax accounts.
Okay, switching gears slightly. The home office deduction. The sources say the IRS made this easier. No more tracking tiny percentages of utility bills.
Yeah, the simplified method. It's much easier. Instead of calculating the exact percentage of your home insurance, electric bill, etc. used by your office space, you can just take a flat deduction. $5 per square foot of dedicated office space.
Up to a limit.
Yep, capped at 300 square feet, so a maximum deduction of $1,500 per year. 5 by $300. But here's the neat part, the double dip people talk about.
Double dip. Oh.
With the old complicated method, you had to allocate a percentage of your property taxes and mortgage interest to the home office expense, reducing what you could deduct on Schedule A. With the simplified $5 QFILP method, you take that $1,500 deduction and you still get to deduct 100% of your property taxes and mortgage interest on Schedule A.
Ah, so you get the simple deduction plus the full itemized deductions.
Nice.
Simplifies record keeping, keeps major deductions, win-win.
Okay, last tax point. That 20% QBI deduction, qualified business income for rental income. Sounds great, but the source's caution is subjective.
Very subjective. And the IRS looks closely at this. To get that 20% deduction on your rental profits, your rental activity has to qualify as a trade or business, not just passive investing.
What does that mean in practice?
It means you have to be actively involved, like really involved, documenting significant hours spent on management, doing repairs yourself, screening tenants, negotiating leases, way beyond just hiring a property manager and cashing checks.
So passive landlords probably don't qualify.
Generally, no. If you just review statements once a quarter, probably not going to fly. You need to show substantial, continuous involvement, definitely something to plan carefully with a tax pro to build the case if you want to claim it.
Okay, we've covered tactics, finance, taxes. But smart investors also need to understand the bigger picture, right? The history, the sociology, why some areas thrive and others decline. Historically, the city was king.
Absolutely. Go back to the 19th, early 20th century, all the energy, the opportunity, the culture. It was packed into the dense urban core. Writers raved about the metropolis. If you wanted to make it, you had to be downtown.
But then something changed. Not necessarily because people hated cities, but because of technology. Specifically, the streetcar.
The electric streetcar was a game changer for real estate. Before that, maybe around 1900, how far could you realistically live from your downtown job and commute daily? maybe 2 miles, walking distance, or slow horse-drawn transit.
Okay.
The electric streetcar suddenly pushed that practical commuting radius out to maybe 6 miles? Think about how much land that opened up.
The huge areas became accessible.
Exactly.
Wow.
Suddenly, regular working folks could afford larger lots, bigger houses in these new streetcar suburbs, and still get to their jobs downtown relatively easily. It was the birth of mass suburbanization.
But this ability to leave the core, it had long-term consequences. St. Louis is used as a stark example.
Yeah, St. Louis is a really sobering case study in what happens with mass urban abandonment. It was once the 4th biggest city in the U.S.
Oh.
Huge, thriving.
Again.
Population just plummeted from over 816,000 at its peak down to like 453,000 by 1980. That leaves behind a ghost city in some ways. You have infrastructure, roads, sewers, utilities built for twice the population. You have neighborhoods hollowed out, buildings abandoned or burned. It's a massive challenge.
And for an investor today.
It highlights the deep risks of investing in areas with that kind of long-term systemic decline. It's not just about one bad block, it's about decades of shrinking tax base and disinvestment. Very hard to fight that tide. Hashtag B, government and segregation in housing value.
And sometimes that decline wasn't just organic. It was actively shaped, even worsened by government policy. Federal Housing Administration, the FHA, comes up here.
This is a really tough but critical part of the history found in the sources. The FHA, which was supposed to help people buy homes, actually wrote racial prejudice into its official rulebooks, its underwriting manuals. They explicitly linked the presence of non-white residents in a neighborhood to higher financial risk. They basically said if a neighborhood is racially mixed, it's less stable, less desirable for mortgage insurance. The federal government essentially blessed the idea that segregation was good for property values.
Wow. And this reinforced discrimination that was already happening privately, like restrictive covenants?
Exactly. Private homeowners were already putting clauses in deeds, restrictive covenants, saying the property couldn't be sold to black families or other minority groups. They believed this protected their property values.
So when the FHA adopted that same logic,
it turned private prejudice into official, federally backed segregation. The government wouldn't insure mortgages in racially mixed or minority neighborhoods, the infamous practice of redlining. This locked entire communities out of wealth building through homeownership for generations. The impact is still felt massively today in wealth gaps and neighborhood disparities. It's crucial to understand this history when looking at city maps and property values.
Okay, shifting gears on government intervention. Rent control. The sources talk about a paradox there, how it can affect landlords differently.
Yeah, rent control can create really weird, often bad incentives. Imagine the law says you have to provide certain services, heat, hot water, basic repairs, but the maximum rent you're allowed to charge doesn't even cover the cost of those basic services.
So an honest landlord loses money on every tenant.
Right. They're financially underwater just by following the law. Their building's value basically goes to zero or negative. But the dishonest landlord,
They can still profit.
if they break the law, yeah, they can cut corners, not provide the heat, and let the place fall apart to save costs. Or if there's a severe housing shortage, they might take under-the-table payments, key money, just to let someone move in. Rent control can end up punishing the good actors and rewarding the bad ones. Hashtag C, the human element in rental management.
It's not all just policy and numbers, though. The sources get into the psychology of being a landlord or manager, the day-to-day human stuff.
Yeah, there's often this built-in tension, right? Tenants sometimes look at the landlord or manager with suspicion, thinking, you're just collecting my hard-earned rent to fund your fancy life. Whether it's true or not, that perception exists.
And managers have to deal with that. There's an anecdote about a manager named Quentin.
Yes. He said before he'd go meet tenants, especially for maybe a tough conversation, he'd consciously take off his nice watch, maybe tuck in a gold chain if he was wearing one,
Why?
to avoid looking like he was flaunting wealth supposedly paid for by their rent. It was a deliberate move to try and de-escalate that potential class tension before the conversation even started, recognizing the psychology involved.
And this human emotional side can even override basic economics, like with vacant units.
This is the vacancy dilemma they describe. Logically, a landlord with an empty apartment knows getting some rent is better than getting zero rent.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Better $950 than nothing if the asking rent is $1,000.
But the sources talk about owners who will refuse that $950 offer even if the unit's been empty for months. They feel personally offended by the lower offer. Their pride gets in the way. They'd rather get zero than accept what feels like an insult. It's totally irrational economically, but it happens.
Okay, we've laid out the whole landscape, the finances, the history, the deals, but none of it matters without the right operator, right? The person executing the plan. This gets into mindset, habits, and one source makes a really powerful point. Habits aren't just about achieving stuff. They're about becoming someone.
That totally reframes it, doesn't it? It's not, I want to lose weight. It's, I am becoming a healthy person. Not, I want to buy 10 houses, but I am the kind of person who analyzes deals every morning.
So you focus on the identity first.
Yes.
Yeah.
You adopt the daily actions, the habits of the person you want to become, the external results, the 10 houses, the weight loss. They become almost like a side effect of embodying that new identity. Consistency in the small habits reinforces who you are.
And making those habits stick, it's about the environment. Context and cues, not just willpower.
Right. Habits get wired to our surroundings, the time of day, the chair you sit in, what's on your desk. Just saying, I'll analyze deals when I get to my desk is too vague. It's weak.
Needs to be more specific.
Much more specific. Like, when I sit down at my desk after pouring my coffee, I will immediately open my deal analysis spreadsheet. Or when I close my laptop for lunch, I will make 5 calls to potential leads. Linking it to an existing routine, a specific time and place, makes it almost automatic.
Okay. And what's the simplest way to keep that momentum going?
Just track it. Seriously. The simple act of putting an X on a calendar every day you do the habit, or logging calls made in a notebook.
Why does that work?
It creates a visual chain.
Yeah.
You see the progress. You don't want to break the chain. It provides this little dopamine hit, this sense of accomplishment that makes you want to do it again tomorrow. Studies show people who track stuff, diet, exercise, sales calls, are way more likely to stick with it and improve. Hashtag BP, building high-performance systems.
Okay, so you build the identity, lock in the habits. Then you need a system for execution. The sources mention the 12-week year concept. How does that help?
It fights procrastination. If you set annual goals, I want to buy 2 properties this year, it's easy to think, I've got plenty of time. You push it off until Q3 or Q4.
Yeah, deadline pressure is far away.
Exactly. The 12-week year treats every 12 weeks like a full year. You set big goals for that 12-week period. Suddenly, every single week matters. Every day matters. You can't afford to slack off for a month.
It forces focus on daily execution.
Total focus. You have to know what critical actions you need to take today and this week to hit that 12-week goal. It makes you confront failure much faster. Why didn't I make those offers last week? You have to course correct immediately.
And doing this consistently, it's hard to do alone. Accountability comes in. Teams.
Absolutely. Successful people embrace accountability. Knowing you have to report your progress to a mentor, a partner, an accountability group gives you that extra push to do the work, especially when you don't feel like it.
And in real estate, that team is crucial. Not just accountability partners, but
your whole network, your lender, your insurance agent, your contractor, your CPA. The best education often comes from their collective experience, not just books.
Which is where online communities can fit in, like Bigger Pockets mentioned in the sources.
For sure. Think of them like a massive, experienced mentor network. You have a weird, specific question about, say, permits for adding a bathroom in your specific town. A book probably won't answer that. But someone on that forum likely has dealt with exactly that.
So you get practical, fast answers.
Yeah. And by participating, asking good questions, sharing what you learn, you build relationships that can lead to finding partners, off-market deals. It establishes you as someone serious in the space.
Okay, let's bring it full circle. Back to dealing with people. Selling, marketing properties. The sources talk about empathy being key.
In a world moving towards automation, empathy is the human advantage. The internet can show listings, process applications, but it can't connect emotionally.
So a good agent or investor.
A good salesperson can listen to a client's stress. Buying or selling a home is stressful, and genuinely say, I hear you, this is a big deal, I've got your back. That validation, that connection builds trust in a way an algorithm can't. That's often what makes the difference in getting a complex deal over the line. So you put it all together, the disciplined identity, the systematic execution, like the 12-week year, the technical knowledge, handy that ability to connect with people, that's the operating system. That's what really drives success.
Wow. That was a serious deep dive. We really covered the map, didn't we? From ground level tactics like BRRRR, that 1 on 10-10 rule, up to the high level finance, cap rates, those tricky cumulative versus non-cumulative returns, Roth IRAs for tax savings.
Yeah, and we didn't shy away from the tough stuff either, looking at how historical factors like FHA redlining and urban flight patterns directly shape the property values we see on the ground today in places like St. Louis. It's all connected.
And then bring it back to the individual investor,
Hmm.
the mindset, the habits, the identity piece being fundamental, building that operating system.
Exactly. The big takeaway, I think, is that mastering real estate isn't just about knowing the formulas. It's about becoming a disciplined operator who also understands these bigger historical, psychological, systemic forces.
Right. It's a much richer, more complex picture than just flipping houses.
Definitely. So maybe a final thought to leave you with, building on that idea of discipline and focus from the sources. They say success often comes more from what you say no to than what you say yes to.
Setting clear boundaries.
Exactly. So the challenge for you, the listener, is based on everything we've discussed, what are maybe 3 specific won't touch criteria you can add to your investment filter right now? Maybe certain neighborhoods you'll avoid, property types you won't deal with, or financing structures you'll refuse. Getting really clear on your no list, that might be the most powerful first step.
That's a great actionable takeaway. Define your no. Excellent. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. We hope this gave you a truly comprehensive blueprint for navigating the world of real estate investing. Thanks for joining us.
Talk to you next time.